Hello, it's Reverend Smith, or if you prefer, Bethany's dad here. How are you doing? Are you alright? I hope things aren't too hard in this new lockdown. I hope you're managing as best you can. Keep at it. What's your favourite story? There's an interesting question. What's the story you most like to read or to hear or to watch or to play, I guess? I think I find this a hard question. The story I'm reading at the moment is really rather good. It's called The Princess Bride, and it's like one of those stories, where the princess gets captured and the hero has to come to rescue her. But doesn't quite work out like that. At least I don't think so. We've not finished it yet. But it's very strange and it's very funny. Probably a bit adult, but it's good nonetheless. What's your favourite story? The reason I ask this is because on Wednesday I was sat with Bethany as she was doing some of her schoolwork because she needed some company. And I just happened to glance across at her iPad where she was doing her work, and I happened to notice that she was doing her RE work. Now, obviously, as a minister, someone doing RE work is like, ooh, that's interesting. What was even more interesting was that she was doing the work you all had about the parables of Jesus, that you were starting a series about the parables of Jesus. And it was then that the idea hit me. It hurt, but I'm all right now. I thought, I know a little bit about the parables of Jesus. I wonder if I can help in any way. So I emailed Mr. Greenwood and Mr. Holcroft and asked if I could make a video or something like that, if that would be of any help to you all. And he said yes. And so here we are. Now, there's a lot I could say about the parables of Jesus. Very, very clever people who study these things very, very in depth at universities have come up with all sorts of ideas about parables. But we won't go there today. I want to give you, I guess, a kind of crash course, beginner's guide to the parables of Jesus. What were these parables? Well, they're stories in a way, which is why I was asking just now what your favourite story is. They're stories that Jesus told. Sometimes he told them to his close group of friends, his disciples. Sometimes he told them to all the crowds that were following him around. But these weren't just any old stories, stories about that time Jesus went to the shops, possibly because they didn't have many shops in those days. These were stories with a message, stories with a meaning, sometimes more than one meaning. So why did Jesus tell them? Did he just see his disciples or see the crowds around him and go, you know what, lads and lasses, do you fancy a story? I'm sure if he'd said that, people would have gone, yay! But that's not why he told them. Jesus told these stories because they had a meaning and a message that he wanted to get across. Sometimes it was because somebody had asked him a question and he thought the best way to explain the answer was to tell a story. Sometimes he could see people doing things that he didn't believe were right. Sometimes he heard people saying things that weren't right. Once or twice, Jesus even knows that someone's thinking something that's not right with God. And so he tells them stories to try and get them to change their mind, to see that the way they're acting or talking or thinking isn't right. Sometimes he told stories to explain things, to explain what he was trying to do, what his mission was. Sometimes he told stories to get people to imagine how things could be different, could be better. He told parables about what he called the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven. If you come across any of those parables in the next few weeks, don't think of what Jesus is talking about as a place up there in the clouds where people go when they die and they're on clouds with white robes and halos and harps and wings and all the rest of it. No, Jesus is wanting people to imagine the best place that this world could ever be, where everything bad, everything that hurts us and other people and everything wrong that we do is gone, and the world is just the best it could be. That's what Jesus means by the kingdom of heaven. And he told parables to try and get people to imagine that. So what happens in these parables? What are they about? Well, actually, they're about all sorts of things. Interestingly, they're often about people and events and situations that those who listen to him would have known, would have been involved in. He told stories about shepherds and farmers and fishermen, and sadly they were mainly men in those days. But while these may be strange to us, to people in Jesus' time, they would have known fishermen, they would have known farmers, and they would have known shepherds. They would have seen them going about their business. So when Jesus told a story about them, they'd gone, oh yes, I know about that. Perhaps if Jesus came now, he would have talked about shopkeepers or train drivers or bus drivers, or maybe even teachers or teachers' assistants, who knows. The point was, these were so often ordinary people in ordinary situations who were in Jesus' stories. Do you sometimes find that the best books to read or films to watch or whatever are ones that are about ordinary people? People a bit like us? Even if they do amazing and extraordinary things, sometimes the best stories can be those with people we can relate to. But here's the interesting thing about Jesus' parables, that although they started with ordinary people in ordinary situations that many people would have known, they didn't always stay that way. Do you remember me saying near the start that the story I'm reading at the moment, The Princess Bride, sounds in many ways like a very traditional story, but actually it's something very, very different from that? Well, that's quite often what happens in Jesus' story. Strange things that no one expects suddenly happen. Let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, in the Good Samaritan story that you were reading last week, something very strange happened. Not that the man got beaten up and robbed. That road between Jerusalem and Jericho was very well known for being a very dangerous road, and you didn't go on it unless you had to. No, the strange thing is the one who helps the man, the Samaritan. Because in Jesus' time, the Jews, Jesus' people, and the Samaritans didn't get on. There was no Jew-Samaritan liking in those days. They avoided each other. So then Jesus tells a story where the one who helps the man isn't the priest, because he's a little like, oh, I don't know what I should do here. I might be late, I better go. It's not the Levite, the helper of the priest, who's all like, oh, he might be dead anyway. I'll leave him. It's a Samaritan. What? Can you imagine? And if you read the Bible version of that story, when Jesus finishes telling him the parable and asks the man, well, who do you think was the one who was a neighbour to the man who got robbed? The person he's talking with doesn't go, oh, it was the Samaritan. He goes, it was it was the person who helped him. As if he can't even bring himself to say Samaritan. It was too much of a shock, too much of a surprise. Another example for you. Jesus tells a story about a farmer who goes out into his fields sowing seeds to grow some wheat. Now, I don't know how much or how little you know about farming. I don't know very much. But let me ask you a question. If you were sowing seed to grow wheat or any other crop, where would you sow it? Would you sow it on the hard path where nothing can grow? Would you sow it on the rocky soil where it's really thin and it's all stones and there's nowhere for the seed to take root and to grow? Would you sow it amongst weeds, all the dandelions and thistles and everything else, all the plants that you don't want there but which will stop the wheat from growing? Or would you sow it on the nicely ploughed, rich, deep, lovely soil where the plants all had room to grow and flourish and become wonderful wheat? If you said anything other than the last answer, the good soil, I'm afraid you're going to have to give up on becoming a farmer. It's just not for you. Sorry. But in this parable of Jesus, the farmer sows it everywhere. He sows it on the path and on the rocky soil and amongst all the weeds and on the good soil as well. It's like he doesn't care where it goes. I'm just sowing seeds. Jesus is telling that story about the message he's bringing to people, and it's as if he's saying, I don't care who hears this, how good or bad or anything else they are. Everyone just needs to hear this message. So we thought of parables as stories with a message or a meaning that Jesus told. And we thought about how they're stories, yes, with a message, and stories that are often based around situations that people would know about, but that often have twists or surprises in them. And I think those twists and those surprises are a lot about why Jesus used parables so much, why he told so many stories, and what he hoped people would do when he heard them. Because very often Jesus doesn't give people the answer. He doesn't explain the parable. You know, when a teacher, and I'm sure this never happens, but if a teacher were to say something to you that you just didn't understand, you would ask, I hope, you would say, excuse me, what do you mean? I don't understand that. And the teacher would explain it to you. Jesus doesn't always explain what he means. And I think that's because he wants people to go away and think about it. Sometimes when you're stuck with something, you need someone to tell you the answer. You need someone to say, look, it's this and that and the other, and two really is 4. Sometimes that is right, isn't it? 2 and 2, 4? Yeah. Sometimes it's better if it's not explained to you, if you have to go away and work it out and puzzle it out for yourself. Because then you think about it more, then it means more to you, and then you understand why these strange things have been said to you. We don't often know what happened after Jesus told his parables to people. But I think he hoped that they would go away, think about what he said, puzzle about the things that didn't make any sense to them or shocked them or even made them upset, and then think about how their lives needed to change because of that. I think he hoped that people wouldn't just get the answer, but would begin to change their lives or begin to imagine that the world can be different and better, and what they can begin to do, changing themselves or changing things that happen to make that world, our world, such a good place. So I hope that that helps in some way as you read through these parables. Look for the situations, look for the things that are happening, look for the people who are involved and what they're doing, and look out for those hidden surprises, those things that happen that you might not expect to happen, or that people back then might not have expected to happen. And through those situations, through those characters, through those surprises and even shocks, try to begin to imagine what Jesus hoped other people would be thinking about, would be doing, would be changing because of these stories. Most of all, have fun with these parables. Quite often in church or whatever, you hear them read very solemnly and very seriously like this. But actually, Jesus had a great sense of humour, and some of them would have been absolutely hilarious to people. We might not get it, but try to imagine these as fun stories as well as surprising and shocking ones. Have fun with them. If you need any more help, then get in touch, and I can let Mr. Greenwood and Mr. Holcroft and anyone else know how to get in touch with me. But have fun with these stories, enjoy them, take care, and hopefully I will see you very soon. Bye bye.